Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to our special program for a special occasion with a special emphasis on intellectual contributions to world civilization by the Institute of Muslim Cultures. And we have a very special relationship with IMMC, and it is based in Jackson, Mississippi. But in this particular time, we thought that we would do a virtual exhibit of this museum. The International Museum of Muslim Culture is based in Jackson, Mississippi. I actually visited the museum last year when I was on a task force that is countering white supremacist violence against houses of worship. And I had the honor of meeting the founder, co-founder, Ms. Okolo Rashid, and she's going to give us an overview of the philosophy of the museum's work. But the reason why MPAC is involved in it is for two reasons. Number one, there is a missing connection in terms of the legacy of Islamic intellectual contributions to world civilization. You notice when our kids go through high school or social science, and even when we went through high school, it started with Greek history, Greek civilization, Roman civilization, and then what they call the Dark Ages. And then it goes to modern Western civilization. So there is that omission of our legacy to world civilization. And that, as Malcolm X said, when they start writing your history, you've lost everything. And we keep talking about controlling our narrative. Well, we got to start with factual information about the history of the world and our contributions. Number two, we hear that our libraries were burned in Baghdad and in Timbuktu and in various places historically. And that also has an impact on our identity as Muslims because we lose touch with that intellectualism from these great intellectual centers, especially in Mali and in Timbuktu and in Darfur, part of a central part of Africa. So we are missing that African Islamic contribution to our own history. And therefore, for those two reasons, we are engaging the Institute, the International Museum of Muslim Culture, that gives us that opportunity to reconnect to our legacy. So I'd like to introduce, first of all, Emad Emad Al-Turk, who is with the IMMC, and he will give us an overview of the museum's history and its areas of work. Go ahead, Emad.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. May God's peace and blessing be with you. Just wanted to again first really acknowledge and thank MPAC and Brother Salam and really the wonderful team that's been working with us for months in planning not only this webinar, but future webinars that we're planning next year, inshallah. So one of the things I guess I want to talk about the museum and how the museum started. So this month, actually, the museum celebrates its 20-year anniversary. And we started precisely because of what Salam mentioned earlier about the issue of not writing our own narrative. So back in the year 2000, the city of Jackson was hosting an international exhibition called The Majesty of Spain. And when we discovered that this exhibit is actually coming to Jackson, and this was a major international exhibition, we obviously wanted to learn whether they are actually discussing the contributions of Muslims in Spain and Portugal and the Iberian Peninsula that actually lasted for over 700 years. And what we were told is that no, we're really focusing on European art starting in the 17th century on, really without addressing the contributions of Muslims. So obviously we were kind of offended that this part of history was actually omitted. And the Muslim community in Jackson decided that we will actually develop a companion exhibit that will run concurrently with the Majesty of Spain exhibit called Islamic Moorish Spain, Its Legacy to Europe and the West. So our plan was never to actually develop a museum. Our plan was to develop this exhibit so we can share those stories about the contributions of Muslims in Spain and Europe. Really, I mean, Spain was the area of Renaissance and led in many areas of science and astronomy and medicine and many other fields. So we felt really obliged to tell that story. So within a relatively short period of time, we were able to raise funds and actually develop the exhibit. And we strategically put the exhibit across from the international exhibition. We rented space, we actually renovated it, and within about 4 months period, we were actually opened the exhibit whenever the international exhibition came to Jackson in April of 2001. So within, at that time, this international exhibition received over 600,000 visitors. We were able to capture about 25 or 30,000 visitors out of them for a period of 6 months. And many of our visitors said that, wow, we didn't even know about all this history. This is really an important contribution. It actually complements and completes the larger exhibit that they came from. So as we were planning, I guess, to actually close the exhibit in October of 2001, obviously the September 11 event happened. So that's one component. Then, a lot of our visitors and a lot of our friends encouraged us to examine and look at that there is not a single institution in the country at the time that actually focuses primarily to preserve Islamic history and culture in the United States. So there's not a museum that focuses on that primarily. So we basically, over a deliberation of about a year or so, we decided to actually turn that exhibit into a full-time museum, and the International Museum of Muslim Cultures was born. And then since then, obviously, we had significant other activities over the last 20 years. So our work today actually consists of 3 areas. One is exhibitions. So we had the Majesty of Spain exhibit. We had the Legacy of Timbuktu, Wonders of the Written Word exhibit, which Okolo will share a little bit more about this as well. We had the photography exhibit from Ramadan. We currently have an exhibit about Muslims with Christians and Jews, an exhibition of covenants and coexistence. So an element of the work that we do all of the research, we all do the curation, the design, the fabrication, all of the work that's actually needed to host an exhibit. The second thing, an exhibition by itself without having robust programming is really will not be as effective. So we actually started and formed an institute within the museum called the Islamic Thought Institute, which Sister Okolo actually is the director of it, in addition of her role as a co-founder and president of the museum. So the institute focuses primarily on research, education, and again, Okolo will talk more about the philosophy behind the work we were doing. We're in more detail. And finally, about 6 years ago, almost now, the city of Jackson designated the International Museum of Muslim Cultures and the month of April as Islamic Heritage Month. So during that month, annually for the last 5 years, we actually celebrate with the community contributions in art, in culture, music, dance, food, really all cultural activities from a variety of different Muslim cultures from across the world. This has been a tremendously successful effort to bring people of goodwill together in that effort. So this is kind of just a quick summary of really kind of the 3 programs that the museum focuses on.
So thank you, Emad. And I'm going to try to play the video We had some technical difficulties at the beginning, but I believe we can play it now. I'll go ahead and play a video about the International Museum of Muslim Cultures.
And I am the
showcasing Muslim culture.
My name is Okolo Rashid, and I am the co-founder and executive director of the International Museum of Muslim Cultures, America's first Islamic history and culture museum.
To the Muslim community in Jackson, which is relatively small, actually decided to get a group together and begin to plan a companion exhibit called Islamic Mortgage Spain, its legacy to Europe and the West. We discovered as part of this process that there is not a single institution in the country that focuses on Islamic history and culture.
Our major exhibit is called The Legacy of Timbuktu, which is an exhibit around the rediscovery of ancient documents, manuscripts that actually establishes the great scholarship, great universities, great learning, great wealth building and empire building of West Africa. But there's another exhibition, of course, and that is our More Spain exhibition.
2/3 of the enslaved Africans that were brought to the Americas were Muslim. So part of the social fabric of America is to understand that Muslims are a part of what actually created America.
Really what it's trying to do is to enlighten people about the history of Africa, the history of Mississippi, the history of Islam, and to show how all of those are connected. Because not a lot of folks in the United States know that Islam is part of America's history. Muslims were, in the U.S. long before we even had a constitution. If you count all of the enslaved Africans who were Muslim but not allowed to practice their faith, they probably equaled many of what we would consider practicing Christians at that time.
Forbidden from practicing their faith, they found secret ways to keep Islam alive. Calling the faithful to prayer here in Mississippi is Abdul Rashid. He believes that one way they achieved this was through music.
If you ever went to a Baptist church, then you can hear this in a Baptist church. The whole congregation is singing, I love the Lord, He heard my cry.
That original blues sound actually came from the Muslim call to prayer.
So one of the things that the museum is doing is helping to counteract some of these negative stereotypes by showing that Islam means different things to different people, just like any religion does.
Wonderful, thank you. And now we go to the person that I was introduced to that led me to this beautiful project, Sister Okolo Rashid, and she's quite a dynamo in Jackson, Mississippi. You ask people in Washington about it, and I asked who should I talk to when I go to places like Mississippi or Georgia or Texas, and they say you need to meet Sister Okolo Rashid. So really proud to consider her a sister and a leader, not only for our community, but for our country. Sister Okolo.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much, Salam, for that wonderful introduction. I want to, as Emad has done, is to really thank you and let you know how appreciative we are that you and MPAC is hosting us on this special occasion. We're really excited to be doing work together. When we talk about the philosophy of our work, let me just start by just reminding us of the moment that we're in, right? We right now in our nation is in the grips of 3 and even more, but at least 3 pandemics. The coronavirus, economic meltdown, but also the racial injustice reckoning. And so the work that we do, we feel very convicted that we're in a position, we're in a very unique position to really address the issues. So how do we do that, and how do we feel that that's something that we can do? Well, we're actually already doing some of that work. Our philosophy of work really centers around what I call the liberating theologies of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And there are a number of theology ideas and principles, but there are at least three. Okay, there are at least three fundamental ideas that really sets at the core of the dynamic Islamic culture and civilization. And those ideas, number one, is divine unity, which is the oneness of God. And we call it Tawheed in Islam. Human unity, the fact that there is one humanity, and the idea of the sacredness of individual freedom and human dignity. And we define human dignity as that inherent nobility, honor, worth, that born sense of leadership and self-governance. That is the endowment of every human being. So all of our programming is centered around these ideas. And Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he was not one just espoused ideas and his theology, but he was in fact an activist, right? And so he, as a part of that activism, he saw his role following some dictates of the Quran as one that was to bring to society a new world order of peace, freedom, and justice. And there is an ayat or a verse in the Quran that says, "Let there arise out of you a band of people, a community, inviting to all that is good, enjoining what's right and forbidding what's wrong." Now, Muhammad understood that to mean that he was to create a community inviting all people. And he started with those around him, the Jewish community, first and foremost. He made a covenant of peace agreements with the Jews in the area. Then later on, he made peace agreements with the Christians in the area and others as well. And so what that says to us is that there is a model for engaging the interfaith community, but also engaging the broader community. Now, you might think that when you say there is this idea about divine unity or the oneness of God, all believing people believe in the concept of the oneness of God, but the thing that made this concept unique, and it was a new approach, was that Muhammad taught that this concept meant that there is no human being one iota closer to God than the other. So this idea of establishing, the playing field such that all human beings have direct access to God, that really defines what individual freedom and that idea of human dignity is all about. And so that becomes a driving force around much of the work that we do. So thus what we tend to do is that we bring people of various backgrounds together. And our goal is to help to teach about and for these ideas, and for people to embrace these ideas. And one of the things that I think is very significant in terms of this peace movement and this movement for justice and freedom is that Muhammad presented this concept of respect for one's faith. So he made the statement that he was asked. Let's see. He says, "You will not enter paradise. None of you will enter paradise until you believe, and you will not believe until you love one another." So he actually attributed this concept of belief to the idea of loving one another, loving all of humanity. And he says, he says that, shall I tell you something? If you do it, it would make you love one another. Spread peace among yourselves. So this whole idea of creating a culture of peace and promoting peace and being inclusive and building a diverse community that engages in social justice work, we feel is at the core of what we do.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Sister Okolo. And thank you for reminding us of the Prophet's reminder. And the whole idea of human dignity and human equality is really an article of our faith that comes with the unity of God, the one God. So Emad, just a few questions. We have time for a few follow-up questions to both of you. Emad, can you describe the museum's plan of becoming national in reach and scope?
Thank you, Salam. Yeah, I guess about maybe 3-4 years ago, the museum board decided, since there is not a single institution like the museum in the country, that is really incumbent upon us to try to spread the museum's message and the work that we're doing across the nation. So we kind of developed different strategies of how we accomplish this. One of them, we actually developed a traveling exhibit program. So the board decided that every time we design an exhibit, a new exhibit, we would design it as a traveling exhibit. It will basically start in Jackson, Mississippi, and then we'll tour around the country. So our current exhibition that we have, that we just opened last year, the Muslims with Christians and Jews, the Covenants exhibit. This exhibit was designed and fabricated as a traveling exhibit. So that this actually can begin, and we were supposed to actually travel to Chicago and other areas starting in July of this year. But because of COVID, a lot of institutions kind of delayed this process here.
Yeah.
But also we are in the plan for redesigning and refabricating our Timbuktu exhibit. So it will begin to travel in sometime in 23 as well. So that's one element of how we can become national in scope. The second thing is through our educational programming and outreach effort. So we are developing our digital platform, and I guess the virus, this is one of the benefits of the virus. We are actually going to be doing virtual programming, some with MPAC, and we're having a full year of programming starting in February of next year, but also really with other organizations as well. So we will be able to reach everybody across the country, and for that matter, really across the world as well.
Yeah, and we have people from Baton Rouge, Khalid Hudson, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Theodore Lush, Montgomery, Alabama, Fuad Yaqub from Anaheim, California, Naomi Feast from Raleigh, North Carolina, and 2 people from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. So we hope that the exhibit can go national and international. And we even have Larissa Raleigh from Tahiti. So you get to go to Tahiti next, Okolo and Rashid and Emad, and Asila Rashid from Atlanta, Georgia. So we hope that this really gets that national scope, and we help in making this a national campaign and national exhibit. Okolo, as an activist, how do you and your team plan to mobilize the community to have maximum impact?
What we've done is we feel like we have a very unique model, and we call that model a community-based grassroots mobilization. And so the way that we do that is that we engage the community on all levels. As I said, from various different backgrounds, from the very inception of the museum, we've actually organized and engaged people across race, class, ethnicity, gender, and religion to really come to better understand, our shared humanity. And so we, in engaging the various different, across the board educators, scholars, like we have on our program tonight, but also engaging political officials and so forth, we are able to build a broad-based coalition to help us to collectively think and organize together and to really exchange and share, the various ideas and perspectives. That's really is what's at the root of our organizing. And so not only do we do that locally and regionally, as Emad said earlier, we have a plan to develop a similar kind of model everywhere that we take the exhibition.
And Emad, how is the museum funded today, and how can one become a partner to help IMMC achieve its goals over the next few years?
This is a very important question. Obviously, for any institutions, particularly nonprofit organizations, funding is an extremely important element of our work. So one area here, we have really developed very close collaboration with the city, with the county, with the state, and with the business community. So we receive funding annually from the city of Jackson. We also receive funding from the Mississippi Arts Commission, from the Mississippi Humanities Council, really all of the organizations in Mississippi that actually funds cultural institutions and history museums, we actually receive funding from. Even with the Timbuktu exhibit, actually we received funding from the state legislators to actually support that exhibit. So one element is government activities, and of course we also receive funding from a federal government as well. We received a grant from the National Endowment for the Humanities. We're now pursuing the Institute of Museum and Library Services and other organizations there. So that's one side. There's also many foundations, private foundations, like the Kellogg Foundation, which really has invested over $1 million over the last 4 or 5 years in the museum. So we're very appreciative to them, but there's also many other local areas. But finally, these are for specific projects. When you apply for a grant or you apply for a foundation, you're primarily focused on a specific task or a project that you wanted to do, and that's what they basically fund. So most of our operational activities, our staff, our paying for rent, utilities, and so on, actually comes from individuals. So that's why really having a network of members and supporters of the museum is extremely important to defray some of the operating cost of running the museum day in and day out. So you asked the second part of the question, I guess, was related to how organizations can partner with the museum. So there's a number of ways we can do this. One, we talked about the traveling exhibit program. So if any of you have an interest in actually bringing the exhibitions into your communities, we would love to partner with you to accomplish this. So please contact us. We would love to begin the dialogue in these activities, whether it's the Timbuktu exhibit, or the governance exhibit. If you have an organization and you're interested in joint educational programs, similar to what we're doing with MPAC, we would love to partner with you in this area. Any areas related to arts and culture, particularly within our Islamic Heritage Month, where we actually can do virtual programming. We are doing this. We're partnering with the Islamic Art Society in Houston, for example. We're doing a lot of virtual programming together as well related to arts and culture. And finally, if an organization is interested actually to bring a museum in their community, we have an affiliate program that we are just beginning this process here, where they can become an affiliate with the museum instead of actually spending significant resources to start from scratch. Basically, they can utilize a lot of our what we've done and use this as a model to actually build and grow the museum on a national basis as well.
Wonderful, thank you. I want to now go to our patrons who have been generous enough give us their time to join us. They are Dr. Ronald Mason, who's the president of the University of the District of Columbia, and Dr. Loye Ashton, who's the Chief Academic Officer of Class2Class. And I'd like them to provide their remarks on why they support IMMC. So why don't we start with Dr. Mason?
Thank you, and good evening to everyone and to you. And it's always good to see Emad and Okolo. They mentioned that the museum started in 2000, and I happened to come to Jackson in 2000. Jackson State University was my first presidency. And I remember when I went there, I went and saw the Spanish exhibition, and then I walked across and saw the Islamic culture. And I didn't know at the time who was behind that, but I was certainly attracted to the fact that it was telling the truth about history, and I'm a history buff. And so somewhere along the way, I met Okolo and Emad, and we've been sort of growing together ever since. It's interesting the way that Okolo described the work and purpose of the museum is always the way I describe the work and purpose of Jackson State University. That our job was to produce graduates who would be soldiers in the army of the kingdom of God and build the kind of world that God would like to see. And so, we've done things together over the years. I've appeared on panels, given some money. We worked together to try to help get programming in the public schools. And really, I'm just available for anything they want me to do, because that's how supportive I am of the work and the people. Recently, right before the virus, we started talking about bringing the exhibit up to UDC or to DC in general. And I'm hoping we're going to pick that conversation back up, because I really would like to see that exhibit at, for example, the Museum of the Bible, which would be a nice contrast to what's there now, or even working with the people at the Smithsonian. And so, as soon as the virus is over, we're going to pick that conversation back up, and then see if we can get it done.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Mason. Dr. Ashton.
Well, I just want to give my thanks as well to MPAC for inviting me, and it's truly an honor and a pleasure to be here to speak to you all and to share my experiences. I've had the pleasure of knowing Okolo and Emad and working with them since I moved to Jackson, Mississippi. I spent about 17 years there, from 2003 to 2020, moved there from Boston. And shortly after I moved there, I had an opportunity to work with the museum with my students. I was teaching at Tougaloo College, and I was taking my students. I was department chair in an interdisciplinary and religious studies department. That's my background, is comparative religious ethics. And I was taking them to the museum, again, to show this vibrant history that they were not getting in the kind of typical secondary and post-secondary settings, particularly countering this, myth that the United States was some sort of Judeo-Christian city on a hill, and really the museum had this wonderful treasure of resources to show the religious diversity of the history of the United States and colonial America, and in both its good and bad causes. And then that led those classroom visits and that type of service learning projects that we did with the museum led to a grant that we co-wrote at Tougaloo College there with the museum. And Okolo and I were the co-PIs on to the NEH, and it was funded to do this wonderful international conference in February of 2011 entitled Islamic West Africa's Legacy to the History and Culture of America. And again, just bringing scholars from all over the world to share a lot of what you saw in some of that video there. It was amazing. And then I also was in a 2-year intensive interfaith study group with Emad. We had Jews, Christians, and Muslims, and we would meet once a month for several hours, and we would read our sacred texts around different topics, and we would have very vibrant discussions about learning from each other about what all of that meant. And as a United Methodist minister myself, this was an important part of my own ministry to do this type of interfaith dialogue. Then I worked with Okolo and Emad more recently in 2014 and 2015, when we were working with the Voices Against Extremism project in Jackson, Mississippi, and really bringing Mississippi to a national spotlight for putting together a public statement that no other state had done to really speak out against violence done in the name of religion. And then finally, now that I've left Mississippi and I'm working for an ed tech company that's a social enterprise and working on developing international education through virtual means, very excited to be able to continue working with the museum to help them. We're writing grants together. This was something that Emad just mentioned, the IMLS grant. We've written other grants. We're looking for funding to be able to help the museum build a collaborative learning online academy, which is going to be very different than just simply a virtual teaching environment, because it really will be very much cutting edge in terms of being project-based and collaborative and bringing in scholars from all over the world and making that available to anyone through the context and the networks that the museum has. So this is going to be a very unique creation when it gets built, and it's going to be an amazing contribution that the museum will be able to give at the local, regional, national, and international levels.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask both of you then, if there's one thing you wanted to tell the American public why the International Museum of Muslim Cultures is important for America, what would that be?
For me, it would be because it fills some very large gaps in the truth about America. For example, if you look, in fact, I'm in an argument right now with a philosopher over at Yale about the Declaration of Independence and the concept of nature's God and the notion that all people are created equal, which is what Okolo just talked about. And of course, he thinks it all started with the European Enlightenment, but he forgets what came before it. And the work of the museum is to help us all understand that America didn't just start with Europe, that it goes back much further, and the ideas that America stands for goes back much further. And part of what we're watching now in America is the struggle to understand who we are and where we need to go to be who we say we want to be. And you can't do it without the kind of information that the museum provides and the kind of work that they're engaged in.
I would echo that, and I would also say that one of the wonderful statements through its existence and its exhibits that the museum makes is that contemporary democracy cannot exist without religious diversity. These two things cannot be separated. And by showing that the United States, when it was formed, was a religiously diverse and religiously plural society from the very beginning, That's where the strength of the American experiment comes from as a democratic nation, is with this religious diversity. Religious diversity just didn't come in after 1965 and the Immigration Act. It came in the 17th century, and there were more Muslims living in Mississippi than there were Christians at one point. And so this religious diversity is in fact baked into the DNA of our society. It's never been simple. It's never been easy. It's never been without conflict, but it is a testament to how the history of the United States has evolved over time with this as a strength.
Yeah, if I could add one other thing, what impresses me as much as anything is that they've been able to do this in Jackson, Mississippi. And if you can carve out this kind of space in Jackson, Mississippi, believe me, you can carve it out anywhere. And so,
That's so true.
and so I'm with them for the long haul.
We have a comment from a Mokhtar Ba, says, this is fascinating. I'm a US educated engineer and an Islamic scholar from West Africa, Mauritania, and Senegal. It is unfortunate that Timbuktu has become difficult to access. I hope we're able to get maximum benefit from what the city has to offer. I live in Canada since June 2016. The intersection between Islam and modernity and the issues faced by Muslims in the West is a subject of great interest to me. I applaud your project and all who contributed to it and wish you great success. The younger generation will one day thank all who participated in what is a daunting task requiring dedication, competence, and rigor. And he asks, are you aware of Sylvian Diouf on the subject, or Professor Osman Kane at Harvard?
Not Osman Kane, but Sylvian is one of our scholars on our scholars team.
Excellent. And then another question is, do you have a library that can be accessed online?
Not yet, but we're working on it.
Yeah, this is really actually part of our digital platform that we're working with Class2Class on. So ultimately, this is what we're actually planning to do. All of our exhibitions, all of our manuscripts that we have now will be available digitally at some point in the next couple of years.
A question from Moira McGuire. How are you planning on using technology and the increasing familiarity and comfort with it to ensure your exhibitions and programs are available to those who are not fortunate enough to live in Jackson?
Yeah, that was what Emad just spoke of, working with Loye and his team.
Yeah, I mean, our digital platform is going to address his concerns. We just need funding and 2 more years of work to accomplish this.
So tell us about the gala coming up on, I believe, is it December 30th?
Yes.
Yeah, tell us more about that and how people can contribute there.
So this is actually in celebration of our 20-year anniversary. So this is going to be actually a wonderful event that includes performances, but also include histories of the co-founders. So there's documentaries about each of the founding members, family members, that will be also showcased in that event. And primarily so people will understand really what is behind the museum, why the museum was created, what drives us to actually work on the issues of justice and social justice and equity and human dignity issues. I think by understanding who we are collectively, this will give you an idea about really why this work is important for us individually and collectively, and all of our team that work with us there. So this will be on the December 30th at 6 p.m. And again, if you wanted to register for this or donate, you can do this online now, or you can do it later on. But you go to www.muslimmuseum.com/gala.
Great. And before we end tonight, we're gonna have you announce it one more time for everybody. Now I want to ask about this idea of African Islamic contributions to civilization. Even we Muslims, we were never educated. I mean, I don't remember in my Muslim school or growing up being taught about these wonderful intellectual contributions. So it's not just a problem where, you know, America, as if America started this idea of we're all created equal, and this idea of diversity. We Muslims didn't understand, never understood the idea of diversity. So how is this then important in terms of making African Islamic contributions to civilization a key part of visiting the exhibit?
I think it's really important because we are not going to be able to address the issue of racial dignity and justice without really understanding and really connecting to that history. And I use racial dignity and justice as opposed to just racial justice, right? Because dignity is that thing that I talked about earlier, is that as African Americans, we have been here for a long time, and we've been dealt a terrific onslaught on our dignity, right? And so as a result of that, we really, we're not aware of the fact that as human beings, in order to access that dignity, as Dr. Mason said, we talk about that in our human dignity concept, is that we talk about in the Declaration of Independence, we talk about, we hold these truths to be self-evident. That's really good, that's wonderful. And we talk about, you know, everyone is endowed with this, you know, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So our thing is, what is the life? You know, it's a life with dignity. And if you go to the first paragraph in that Declaration of Independence, it says that we are to assume among the powers of the earth that separate but equal station to which God, the laws of nature and nature's God entitle you to. That's that self-determination, that's free thinking. If we don't connect our young people to that, or older people, we are not going to get out of this fix because it's not external. A part of it is, and we're working on that, and really we've gotten a long way down the road. But what we try to offer is that other side. One last point is that Emad Muhammad, great scholar, one of our learned scholars named him the Muslim Martin Luther of America. He named Emad Muhammad, who is the son of Elijah Muhammad. He transitioned the Nation of Islam to Orthodox Islam, but he made a very interesting observation. He says that during the 60s, you know, with everything that was going on, we actually lost our authentic struggle for racial dignity and justice and freedom, right? And so his point was that he said that there are two of our great leaders in our recent past that best represented what we as African Americans wanted in this country. One was inner dignity. We wanted that back, right? The other one was, yes, civil rights. Yeah, we want rights. But the part that's been, you know, it's gone way ahead of us, and that is some civil rights policies and so forth. But that inner dignity, that's something that we have to do for ourselves. No one can take your dignity away, but you have to be aware of it, and you have to cultivate that yourself within individuals and within our community. So knowing that history of Africa, the great scholarship, great learning, right? And they had these ideas about dignity and this idea about their connection to God. But that was, you know, wiped away, and now we're, you know, we feel like we're connected, but that's why we're having the problems until we're able to do that.
Can I add something to what Okolo is saying? Because this is a really important connection to why Africa and African American story is important. So when we back in 2004, when we started actually doing the research on doing an exhibit in Africa, what we discovered is that there is over 1 million manuscripts in Mali and over 20 million written manuscripts in West Africa. And again, when we look at the curriculum that we are learning in really across the world, not only in the United States, many Muslims don't even understand this subject here. We learned that basically Africa only had oral tradition. We did not learn that there was a tremendous written culture over there. There was a tremendous wealth and empire building and gold trading. And basically before the colonization of Africa, Africa was a very rich continent. They had a lot of resources. So really we wanted to share with our audience here this connection, which is important. The second part of that connection, why West Africa is important to the African-American experience as well, is because many of the enslaved Africans who came from West Africa were also Muslims. And they brought over here, so there's a connection between Islam at really the inception of the country and the United States. So all of these factors are really why it's extremely important for us to actually address the connectivity of African and African contributions to Islam in the world.
Thank you. We have a question about, does your exhibit cover the Arab slave trade?
It does. We do have a theme in reference to the Arab slave trade, yes.
Okay, great. I think that's important to cover the how comprehensive the exhibit is. Another question, which is a technical question, why is there not a hashtag so we can get more young people to spread the word? One person said this is the best kept secret in America. So how can we get the word out, through social media?
Well, we're working on that right now.
That's an excellent question, but I guess really what we ask all of our audience is to help spread the word. So
okay.
I mean, you know now as well, so we ask you to spread it out to all your contacts, all your friends, and distribute this information to them.
Yeah, and you can go to www.muslimmuseum.org/gala for the December 30th event. Again, that's www.muslim, just lost it.
Muslim.org.
Okay.
/Kayla.
Okay, well, they just showed the flyer. So whatever that is, go ahead and go to that website and you could go ahead and post it on your Facebook page. Go to the MPAC National Facebook page and you can share the flyer there. I believe it's on our Facebook page right now. That's www.muslimmuseum.org/gala. Okay.
Could I add one
yes.
little thing? Because I got this note, and that is that in terms of contributions, this is something that the Muslims really have been negligent in, and that is that the first sanctuary city was in Africa.
That's right.
And about 80% of all of the Muslims were there in the beginning, when they were persecuted. And the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, sent them to Ethiopia, in that region, really, not just Ethiopia.
It was a Christian king that gave the Muslims safety.
Yes.
So we owe it to a Christian king for helping Islam become what it is in terms of what we understand it to be, in terms of human dignity, truth. And then Ibn Battuta, one of the greatest Muslim explorers, had written about how the roads throughout this African cross-section of Africa was always safe, that you don't have to worry about any thief or anybody raiding your caravan, that the roads were very, very safe. So thank you for bringing that back to our legacy. Dr. Ashton, Dr. Mason, would you like to give us some closing thoughts as we wrap this up?
I started, I'll let Ashton go first on the close.
Well, it's just been a real privilege and an honor to be here this evening. My work as a scholar and as a minister has been deeply influenced by the work of the museum. I wouldn't be who I am as a human being without the work of Emad and Okolo. One of the things I always tell my colleagues about interfaith dialogue is when I work this closely with my Buddhist and my Muslim and Hindu friends, it's not because I'm trying to be converted or to convert them. They actually teach me how to be a better Christian. And I really feel that my life has been enriched over these last 16, 17 years because of this relationship. And I hope it continues forever. And then as I'm reading some of the chat comments and I'm hearing how people are saying that this has become a meaningful experience because of their own struggles with disillusionment with faith, it almost brings tears to my eyes because I know that that's a struggle for all of us. We're living in a time of, immense disillusionment with our leaders at every level. And to be able to see the work of people who are humble and who are faithful and who are loving towards their fellow human beings and trying to do this work is truly inspiring.
Thank you. I love that line that, our job is not to convert each other, but to make each other better in our own faiths. Thank you, Dr. Ashton. Dr. Mason.
Well, first, I want to thank you all for allowing me to speak, and I appreciate the invitation from Okolo and Emad. I want to remind the audience that they do accept donations, and I'll be making my end of the year donation to the museum before the year is out, and I hope that some people follow my lead. And then third, perseverance is underestimated in society today. And they've been at this now for 20 years. And they get better and better and better at it. And the better they get at it, the more we get out of it. I really do look forward to the opportunity to have them work closer with UDC. I'm extending an invitation, once to work with them to see if we can bring some of the knowledge and learning that they're developing to a center or an institute at UDC. But I'm always going to be available to help whatever they need me to do. And, I just congratulate them on the success so far. And I expect that they'll continue to grow and to teach all of us as time goes by.
Thank you. Okolo and Emad, you have the last word. Again, let us know about this, the gala on December 30th and how people can contribute to this wonderful, wonderful mission. I feel like we're on a journey now. It's not just a project, but a journey of connecting to our own souls and connecting to our legacy, something that we feel has been missing our whole lives, and you are completing that legacy for us. So tell us about the gala.
Right. And I want to say that it's a movement. In addition to a journey, it's a movement. The gala is really something unique this year. So for those that have gone to our other annual events, this is going to be very special because it's a plethora of various different kinds of things, which is unique from what we've done in the past. And one of our board members, Lena Ali, is leading that. And she has done an amazing job of going all across the globe, having artists, that's musicians, and then and then I'm talking about those that actually artistic artists, as well as we having Muhammad Ali. We're honoring him posthumously, and we're actually having his wife, Lonnie Ali, will be accepting that award. We have a cellist that's going to perform. We have just lots of great things happening at this particular annual.
Thank you so much. December 30th gala is a fundraiser art show. You can register and donate at www.muslimmuseum.org/gala. In fact, I'm going to go right now and contribute. So please, everybody else, do the same. That's how you're going to get the word out. And we'll end in the words of the Quran. وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. By the token of time, surely people are at a loss, except those who attain to faith and do what is good and what is righteous and what is just. And they will gather together and work for mutual patience and perseverance, and work for mutually for what is right and the truth. And God speaks the truth. Thank you very much. Peace and blessings to all of you. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.